What does motherhood teach us about leadership?
If I look at motherhood in a sentence, I would say it is really leadership, but kind of with your heart fully exposed, right? Because you're trying to lead in the day-to-day. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking about, I've been a scheduler, a planner, a homework support, snack coordinator, the person that magically finds that we had to leave 5 minutes earlier, right?
Welcome to Motherhood Advantage, the podcast exploring leadership intelligence developed through motherhood. For decades, we've heard about the motherhood penalty, but what about the motherhood advantage? In each episode, we talk with one extraordinary mother about how caregiving shapes the way they think, decide, and lead, because motherhood is leadership.
Hello and welcome to the Motherhood Advantage. I'm Dr. Marie Rivera, and with me today I have Sherry Whitaker Budziak, and she is a nonprofit consultant who works with mission-based orgs, and she is a mom of two. Her book is out now, and it is called Rug, Move What You're Tripping Over and Lead with Heart. And so I wanted to say congratulations, Sherry, and thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yeah.
Can you tell us just a little bit about your life as a mom and what you do?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I love this topic because, I think motherhood's one of those roles where you're like in charge of strategy and operations and culture and you're the customer service desk all at the same time.
Yes, we
with
couldn't agree more.
a little bit of sleep, right? So anyway, that's kind of how I would describe motherhood as a whole. So a little bit about me. I actually had a job working at two major medical societies. And after some significant time there and a lot of CEO transitions, I decided to start my own business so I could have what I believed was some flexibility to do all of the things. So now I've been doing that for 20 years and I'm just trying to balance all the things.
If you don't mind me asking, when you talked about starting your own business, where did that fall in your motherhood journey? Were you already a mom? Is this
Sure.
before or after?
Yeah, it's a
Or
good question. So, I had a daughter who was 4, and that was a point where I had decided that just balancing I was traveling a lot, and I thought if I don't do something different, I'm never going to have a second child because I couldn't balance it all. So that's when I actually decided to start my own company, and my kids are 5 years apart.
there you go. And balance is kind of the theme of our work and our research in personal and professional. So that's amazing. Jumping into our research questions, how would you describe your role as mother? This could be sort of philosophical or even poetic, or it could be more just day-to-day tasks and jobs. What would you say?
Yeah, so I'll describe both. So if I look at motherhood in a sentence, I would say it is really leadership, but kind of with your heart fully exposed, right? Because you're trying to lead and the day-to-day is a lot. So when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about, I've been a scheduler, a planner, a homework support, snack coordinator, the person that magically finds that, we had to leave 5 minutes earlier, right?
Yes, yes,
But really, when you think about it, you end up being the culture setter too, right?
yes.
You're looking at how your family handles stress. I'm better at it now that my kids are older, but it's really how you're setting that leadership in your own house. And that's how I've tied the two together as a leader. And then just reflecting on what skills are needed to be a mother, right? Like communications, conflict resolution, negotiation, time management, all those decision making under pressure. And so both, I think all of those skills as a mother kind of help you in your role as a leader. I can't count how many times you're having to shift priorities. And I feel like we're like in full-time logistics mode, right?
Yes, I agree.
I was thinking about this an example the other day. Okay, think about the times that you've left a client meeting or you left your office and you have to be at the soccer field or the softball field and you're trying to figure out, does everybody have their things? Do you have your cleats or your shin
Yeah.
guards or everyone's got the water bottle or we leave the jersey in the dryer, right?
Yes.
So it's like traffic control, right? On some days.
I feel like that every day. And as a matter of fact, last night, as I was driving to ballet after the soccer game, I was thinking about a friend of mine, a single gentleman with no kids, who was talking about how he likes to walk between his office and his home or even park farther away so that he has time to kind of think and decompress and go over what has happened and transition into the next space so he doesn't walk in the door feeling flustered. And I was thinking that might be amazing if I were
Right?
able to have that time and build that into the schedule. But as you pointed out, there's always the laundry and the soccer cleats and the finding and the things. It's a lot.
Yeah.
You talked about moms as the culture center of the home. And what do you mean by that?
Yeah. Well, I think we've all been there. If you have all these things going on and we can kind of create an atmosphere where things are chaotic too, right? We can create that culture, or we can create a culture where it's like sometimes you got to regulate yourself. I've had those moments where I'm like, okay, calm down for 2 seconds so we can make sure that everybody's looking for those soccer cleats and we're going to get to the game on time or whatever it may be. But I think that for mothers, we're setting that environment. And, honestly, I think I've even over time, I've had to check myself of like, okay, what am I creating in this household? So I think about that as both as a mother and then as a leader. I was mentioning to you that, we launched the book and we're doing a book launch party and whatever. And I reflected back with the team today. I was like, you know what? These were all the failure points, but I knew I created that because I created that schedule, right? And I said, next time, I think we need to space some of these things out. So, you don't do it right. I don't think at home or in the office, 100% all the time. It's okay.
Live and learn for sure. As we talk about that more leadership piece, I'm wondering how the leadership aspects of the paid workplace may have related to those in your role as a mom, or maybe how they're different, but what you see as similarities, overlap, or differences, and any of those skills that we're talking about, how they show up in the different sides.
Sure. I think there's a lot of overlap, and I really actually don't think we talk about it enough. It's great that you're doing this because I think both leadership is about clarity and consistency and care, right? I see that at home, people need to know what matters, what's expected. They need to feel like it's a safe place. And at work, I think it's the same thing, right? Because people perform better when anxiety is lower and frankly, clarity lowers that anxiety.
Agreed.
Who is responsible for something? Who's not responsible for something, right? I think it overlaps a lot. At work, we've got systems and budgets and policies and all of those things. But at home, it's personal, right? You still have rules and maybe chores and those types of things. So I think motherhood personally gave me, I would say, some leadership superpower that shows up at my work.
Tell me a little bit more about that superpower.
Sure. So,
How does it look? How does it feel? When have you felt it the strongest, maybe?
so you mean like as a mother, or is that
All of the
all
above.
the above? I think one thing is when kids melt down, it's rarely about what they say it's about, right? It kind of goes kind of to the message of the rug. You mentioned the rug. I actually wrote a children's book that has this kind of the same story. It's Jules Moves the Rug. And it's the same at work. Like, what is really bothering somebody? Why are they having the meltdown? Why are they crying in their office, right? If somebody's missing deadlines or disengaged, it's not usually laziness. It could be confusion or overload, or they don't feel confident. I will tell you a little story. There was a woman that got this promotion, and the whole company was so excited. We were working with them as a consultant. We were all excited. Everyone was excited because she was great. And I saw her literally crying somewhere else in the office. And I said, what are you upset about? You just got this big promotion. She said, I didn't want it. I didn't want this promotion. She didn't feel like she didn't have the confidence. She still has that role today. But I went back to the CEO and I said, hey, you need to take a pause and help her. You just give her this big promotion, but she doesn't feel confident enough to take on that role. So it's really understanding, really listening to people. I hear you, what's going on. And I think that as a leader and as a parent, that consistency and really understanding and listening and that, I don't know, compassion and kindness helps people just feel safe, and then they're able to talk about what really the challenges are. I think both at home and at work.
For sure, that compassion and kindness, and even noticing when someone is upset. Was that officially part of your job at work, or is that something that you just took upon yourself?
No, I mean, I just think it's part of my personality. Yeah.
I hear you. I just wasn't sure if that was officially in your purview or not, but
No, but I think it
moms get
does.
it done.
Yeah, but I think my role, especially on the consulting side of things, you're usually responsible for doing major transformation projects, whether we're helping an organization with a strategic plan or major technology changes. And typically there's a lot of fear there. There's a lot of a lack of confidence, whatever the case might be. So just over time, I think just helping people along the way actually helps those projects be successful. And a lot of times people are taking on new roles, new responsibility. They don't necessarily feel they understand the tech. I mean, we're in this era right now with AI, and I do a lot of AI training as well. And we're just seeing people that we walk into a room, they don't want to hear anything about it. They're just terrified of how it's going to change their job, that they're going to use it wrong, they're going to put in the wrong data, whatever those cases might be. So I think it's my role to kind of just help people feel safe to be agile, try new things, and, move projects along. So,
I think that fear is an important thing to think about as well when we're looking at growing and changing and all of those things. That fear of the unknown it's always there, and it
mhm.
just depends on how it shows up, I guess. So, talking about where motherhood and leadership intersect and influence each other, can you think of a time or an incident that reflects growth as a mother? And it could be personal growth or something maybe you've helped with your children or some other kind of parallel between the paid workplace and the home. And specifically, how do you think that being a mother and your experience as a mother is influencing or changing your leadership role in the professional workplace?
Yeah. So there's a lot of moments that I could reflect on. I'm sure our listeners could reflect on when you think about those growth moments. But I'll share one that was very significant, and it's really shaped my kids and it's shaped me, and it's really helped my kids become even more resilient. But my husband, he had unexpectedly passed away a few years ago. And in addition to that, it was just a rough year. It was a rough season. And there was no manual for that. I was good at doing all the things, getting all the tasks done, managing what needed to be next, right? Women, it's stressful, right? But we figure out how to get all the tasks done and all the things. And then when
Yes.
something
Yes.
that major happens and that disruptive happens, I kept doing the things, but I didn't know necessarily how to show up all the time in the moment. And in addition to that, it was my older daughter. She was graduating from college. It was my younger daughter's senior year, right? So those were like major milestones that, how are they feeling? How are you feeling? How are they feeling when they have to, walk down for senior night without their father? And I had to lead them during that time. And the other thing that happened was I had a company to run. I had people that I couldn't let down. So you're dealing with helping on the mother side. I'm trying to create a place for joy, but also those moments of grief at the same time, right? Like that was really hard trying to show up when they were hurting, but then keep myself kind of moving along. And then the other thing that happened for all of us, we really saw who showed up and who didn't, who left us in those times. And that's really hard to watch your kids go through. But at a certain point, you think, okay, well, I can't shield them. Well, I couldn't. I tried to, honestly, but you can't shield them from life, right? You can't,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
still have their own identities. And my kids being older, they know what was going on around them. So, we learned to keep going. And I think they've learned a lot of resilience. But then we also talked and we got to a point where we had to ask for help, right? We had to
Mhm,
accept help because that
mhm.
wasn't ingrained in us. Like, fortunately or unfortunately, they took after me, and my mother was like, "No, we got this." My mom would say, "You don't have a choice. You've got to get up. You've got a company to run. You've got
Yeah.
bills to pay. You've got kids to take care of. So you did until the point where it was like, okay, we need to really talk about this. And that is really kind of where I became passionate about taking all of my work experience, because that was easy. I was helping organizations transform, I was helping them do hard things, I was coaching people, I was doing all the things. And then it became personal because that rug got ripped out from under me and I didn't have that playbook. Right. And so it's taught us a lot. And at the end of the day, and it ended up producing a book, which is both kind of that personal, how do you ascend? How do you get out of a place that's really, really hard? And how do you take those little steps to create something good out of it, or something, the next version of whatever it is in your workplace or home. So it's the journey.
I hear you, and that is a really, really personal example, and I appreciate you sharing. But it's very clear to see the overlap and kind of where those skills go. And you said you didn't have a roadmap, but it sounds like you almost used some of your consulting roadmap to help facilitate navigating that change, that real uncertainty and fear that we were talking about earlier. Obviously at a very more massive and personal scale, but similar ideas. Can you tell us a little bit more about your book?
Sure. So based on that journey, we were writing a different book. We were writing a book around this, what we call the H.E.A.R.T framework. My birthday's on Valentine's Day. So,
I love that.
so we created this H.E.A.R.T framework, and it was really about helping people not fear change in this world of AI.
Okay.
So the H.E.A.R.T stands for Humanize, Empower, Ascend, Reimagine, Transform, and kind of all those opportunities that are in front of us. And it was supposed to be this coaching framework. And I took a step back and said, it's more than this. How do I take this moment and create something that no matter where you are in life as a leader or as a mother, and maybe you're not a leader in a company, but how do I create something that when people are going through what they feel is disruption or hard times, that they can learn from my experience to help reimagine what things could look like. And so that's kind of how the book came about. So it's a little bit both kind of self empowerment slash, leadership framework in the book.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to add there in talking about those mother leader connections and where you see the influence strongly, and maybe if you have a sense which direction you think it flows more naturally or more often?
One of the lessons that I learned is that when we're looking at real growth, usually that happens out of disruption. So at the workplace, you can have a big change, a leadership shift. I went through 9 CEO transitions in 5 years, restructures. Yeah, that's why I ended up deciding I needed to do something else. So I'm like, this is crazy. And so you can either get really stuck in what's happened to you right now, or you could figure out like how to move it. And I've seen leaders grow when they stop trying to control everything. Even for myself, I didn't feel like I was controlling things, but I was. I was trying to control, like, I've got to try to make things better, or I've got to keep managing this business. But when you look at resilience, sometimes you just got to let things go, especially in those hard seasons. And that was a big lesson. That was my rug. We were talking about, what was under my rug. That was my rug. Had lost control, right? I couldn't control what had happened, but I felt like I could control everything else. And that was not true. So it's kind of also changed me a bit, because with work, sometimes when things go sideways, I kind of just say, okay, guys, well, now what are we going to do next? And I know that nothing's 100%. Someone told me the other day, we just got to prepare for excellence, not perfection. And so I love that. So I'm stealing that.
Yes, and that idea has come up a lot in these conversations, and the same as what you're saying, kind of about the perspective and when things don't go our right way, and is it that big of a deal, or can we just keep going anyway?
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing something special about each of your children? It doesn't have to be too personal, but could be one of their greatest strengths, a challenge they've overcome, some kind of experience.
Yeah. So my older daughter, she says she's not, but she's very artistic, very caring. And I really loved her view of the world. She's also actually working in my same industry. So I love the fact that she's drawn to that mission driven work and she wants to be part of something that matters. So that just really says a lot about who she is. My younger daughter, she's very empathetic. She's funny. She's analytical. So it's fun to watch her. She's in college right now. And so I'm really enjoying watching her grow and see what's next for her. It's an interesting age because they're becoming themselves and they're alone in making decisions, but they've got this structure, which is all, which is nice. That's been really fun. And she goes to big school. So I've had fun going down and doing things, the football games, the basketball games and that sort of thing. So it's interesting, especially as they get older, they're different people and they require different leadership as a mom
Mhm.
and parenting styles. So I've just learned to meet them where they are, especially in the journey, my personal journey. It was very, very different how they navigated things and timing wise, reacting to things. And so keeps me on my toes different in a different way than work.
Well, and you talked earlier about the change and fear and growth and getting to see your babies in all their stages and now getting to know them and appreciate them as adults, I'm sure is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And as a founder and a business owner, I'm curious what you do or maybe what you have seen done that really works well for your team and specifically for mothers. You talked a little bit about the impetus for going out on your own and you knew it was time and having a little bit more control that way. But also, how have you been able to make it work? Not only for yourself, but for your team.
When I started the business, it was intentional that I wanted to show up at the games, at the orchestra, at softball. That was really important to me. Now, I'll be honest, there were times I had a computer or I was on a conference call and I was judged, but that's okay. I was like, but I'm here. Part of the reason when I started the company, I wasn't planning on being as big as we are today
Mm,
and doing all the things that we're doing. But what happened when I started growing, I had met people along the way that quit their job because they were too stressed out or it was just too much and they were going part-time. So we started out growing with a lot of part-time, and I wouldn't say just moms, but to part-time people, they were either taking care of their parents. And so they didn't have the capacity to go to a job 9 to 5 every day. Or like I said, they were going to start doing something just a little bit on the side. So that's kind of where I started building the company. And now we have some part-time, some full-time staff, and we all agree that life's busy. So we have a lot of flexibility. Flexibility doesn't mean we're not getting the things done, but I have people that'll say, "Oh, I've got to take the dog to the vet and I'll be back online at 7 o'clock." So I will say that's not for everybody because the team, other people on the team have to be able to also be that flexible, right?
mm,
And not get frustrated when I have part-time staff that have a lot of other demands and then full-time staff that are trying to get things done in a certain amount of time or they're waiting for someone to get back to them. So as we interview people and bring people on board, we have a lot of those conversations to make
good.
sure that people are comfortable in that environment because not a lot of people are. And some people, even though right now we're at a right, pretty much the world's a remote environment, some people don't work well that way. I had somebody that was working for me call me one day and they said, "Sherry, I can't work like this because I have my kids are in and out of the house, my mother's in and out of the house. I can't concentrate. I get distracted. I go to Walmart. I want to work for you, but I just can't. I can't have this kind of flexibility." So I think it's just having those conversations. But that was really important to me that life happens and we've got to be flexible and support each other while still doing a great job. And so I'm always like, as long as our customers are happy, if you need to be at a ballet at 3 o'clock
Mhm.
and you have to take a call from there, we're good. We're fine.
Awesome. I love that. And flexibility is so key. Like you said, building it from the beginning, communicating that in advance, and recognizing that your setup isn't for everyone, too.
Yeah.
All very important things. Is there anything else that maybe came to you during this conversation or otherwise related to motherhood and leadership that's on your mind?
I think both entrepreneurship and motherhood really teaches you how to do hard things with some courage, right?
Yes.
And I think they've kind of shaped every part of who I am through the mess and the hard times. But through that, there's growth opportunities, is my message. And the second message is you don't have to do it all. Like, we do the best that we can. I mean, okay, let's be honest. We do have to do it all as women, but let's be honest. But my point is that we're not going to be perfect, right? We just strive for the best, and everybody will be okay.
It is so true. So true. Thank you so much, Sherry. And can you tell us where we can find your book?
Sure. The website's www.rugthebook.com, but it's published everywhere. Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, all the places that you can get books. So yeah, it's
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sherry. And congratulations on the book and getting your kids through all these milestones. And just so happy that you took the time with us today. We really, really appreciate it.
yeah, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Motherhood Advantage is based on the idea that if mothers are trusted to nurture, protect, and shape the next generation, their expertise should be recognized everywhere leadership matters. These episodes build on the work of Intuitionship, a groundbreaking research study with nearly 1,000 mothers, and now a nonprofit continuing to explore that intersection of motherhood and leadership. If you'd like to learn more, make a donation, or recommend a remarkable mother, please visit us at motherhoodadvantage.com. This podcast is hosted by Dr. Marie Rivera and edited by Liz Aderholt, and is dedicated to all of the mothers who keep the world running, because motherhood may just be the most powerful leadership training ground in the world.